My name is Anthony Simonetti. I work in marketing here at New Horizons, and just wanted to welcome everybody to today's presentation, Getting Ahead of the Mobility Curve. We have two presenters today, Elena Farnsworth and Ted Ewell, and I want to go ahead and do some housekeeping items real quick first. I'll be monitoring the questions during the entire presentation. If you guys want to type them in there, I will be making sure that I'm paying attention, but we're going to hold most of the questions until the end. Unless it's small housekeeping stuff, I can respond to that immediately. But we will have time for questions and answers at the end. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Elena. Elena, why don't you go ahead and take over?
Hello. Thank you very much, Anthony. Pleased to be here. Can you see my screen, just to make sure?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, great. Well, I want to introduce myself. Elena Farnsworth. I'm the CEO of Mobile Comply, and I work with New Horizon on the mobility curriculum. We're going to talk, so I'm going to get started. All right. Having a little technical difficulty right now. I'll tell you a little bit about Mobile Comply as we get started. So we specialize in mobile curriculum and training, but our unique approach is that we identify business process and we train relative to mobile technology. And that's really what sets this apart. We work only in the mobile industry, and we specifically talk about processes, and our curriculum developers train specifically on the value of those processes. So the agenda today, what I'm going to talk about is what is mobility. I'm also going to talk about who is the audience, and I'm also going to talk about the selling strategies, what's the value of this, Mobility Plus specifically for IT professionals, and then we're going to talk about the associated technology or courses that would be applicable to Mobility Plus. So what is mobility? The CompTIA Mobility Certification is an internationally recognized certification. And typically you'll hear a question of what's the difference between what is mobile and what is mobility. When a lot of people talk about mobile in itself, they're usually referencing the devices, but mobility is really about the way that mobile works within your environment, within your company. It gives the people and the individuals within your organization the capability of performing tasks and using best practices in mobile security and more. So the mobility certification training is great for IT professionals that are interested in going more toward a mobile focus or in addition to their traditional IT focus into the mobility space. The curriculum is focused on the mobile ecosystem, which really talks about the domain of how the frequencies interact, how the devices interact, how the security interacts, and it really gives you a good idea of how that you can do troubleshooting on all of those domains. So again, the specific names are the over-the-air technologies, network infrastructure, mobile device management, and then the security and troubleshooting. So when we talk about who is the audience, it's best suited for the IT professional, the managers, the directors of IT organizations, the executive levels, the CIOs, the CTOs, network architecture engineers, application developers, and professionals who provide first and second level support. So if you know of individuals who already have a background in A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, or Server Plus, these are really good candidates for this particular certification. We go into, many times we find that our IT professionals don't have the background, but they're being asked to support these type of implementations. Either the organization are bringing in their own devices, they have their phones, they have their tablets, or the company has actually asked them to purchase devices, and they need to make those critical buying decisions in order to be successful. And those are the individuals who will benefit tremendously from the Mobility Plus certification. One of the few of the instances that we like to relate to when we're talking about the selling strategy and, what's the value? Why is this valuable to you as an organization? When we've given our courses and when we've been able to speak to people in the industry that have taken the certification, they've actually made different decisions based on the best practices. So we've had a couple of companies that we've gone into, and they had a preconceived notion of how they wanted to go mobile. They either wanted to build an application, or they thought they were going to allow a BYOD policy, a bring your own device policy, to come inside the organization. But then when they were able to take this course and the IT directors understand what is the value of me really understanding the way all of this worked together, they've made different decisions, because now that CompTIA has launched the Mobility Plus certification, this allows them to not only understand the information by getting training on it, but also to validate that skill set, to let them know that they are making the right choices. And never has there been a time in my 15 years of experience that there's been such a disparity between where the world is heading and the whole new technology approach. And so the issue is there are generation scales and there are different landscapes that are coming in. The delivery platforms are shifting, communication channels are being reinvented, and the customer, the technology is driven by the innovation. So to be able to understand how this all works together and how it's going to impact your organization is a tremendous benefit for you. So the Mobility Plus for IT Professional course that we're talking about today, again, it's designed for the IT professional. You know, when you receive this course, we have a first-in-class study guide for the Mobility Plus certification. We have instructor guides, if applicable, for the organization that's going to be taking this information. We have involved quizzes and case studies, as well as practice exams. So what we provide to our students, we provide them an all-encompassing ability to read the material, to interact with an instructor, to be able to have real-world case studies from the different domains of the Mobility Plus certification, and then to test themselves with these quizzes in order to really make sure that they understand what's being asked of them. And one of the unique things that we found is our instructors and the people, the subject matter experts that write our content, they all work in the mobile industry, and they understand not only what is being tested upon, but really how it's being used in the real world situation today. How is it applicable to what's going on right now? So other technology courses, if you have IT professionals that are network infrastructure specialists or that already have a great mobile foundation and are mobile application developers, they're mobile device managers, or they are involved in security or troubleshooting for your organization, these are people that would really be able to benefit from Mobility Plus. Other certifications from CompTIA that are a good segue, or that if people have these credentials, they are able to embrace the Mobility Plus, is the A+, the Network Plus, Security Plus, or Server Plus. So if you have individuals that already have these certifications, they have a good foundation to be able to take the Mobility Plus. So I'm going to actually give the presentation back now to Anthony, and I'm going to let him announce the next speaker. And we're going to do our questions at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Elena. So, there we go. I'm going to turn over the presentation to Ted right now to speak on his part. So, Ted, there you go.
Okay, let me pull up the correct window here. Okay, and now let me confirm that everybody can see my screen. Garrett, if you could just, Garrett or Anthony, if you could confirm.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, I lost audio.
We can still hear you.
Okay, thank you.
And we can see you as well.
Okay, that's all I was looking for. There's nothing worse than giving a presentation and going through about 10 slides before you find out no one can hear you. So getting ahead of the mobility curve, our involvement has been with the Secure Mobile App Development certification. It's called the Mobile App Security Plus certification. MAS Plus is how I'll abbreviate it in the presentation. And just a very brief intro to me. I am the Vice President of Mobile Services with VIA Forensics. Been doing mobile risk and security assessments for a number of years, and we provide in-depth security assessment of mobile apps. I'm getting an echo back. I don't know if anybody has their, on the presenter side, has their audio. We provide training, and we also have a number of products in the mobile security space, and I oversee our product support on that. VIA Forensics has been at the forefront of mobile security research since really early in the iOS launch period, when consumerization and that platform and then Android really took off. Our company, it's a relatively young company, but we've been involved in mobile security that entire time. We've got a number of public research papers and white papers that kind of demonstrate our area of research. We perform a mobile security assessment service that we call AppSecure, and we provide that service to, top financial institutions, government, and others who need to provide highly secure apps. We've received some small business innovative research grants from DHS, and we have a really popular report on our site called 42 Plus Mobile Security Best Practices that is free for download. Sorry about that. Sorry, someone could mute there. Why these certifications have become so important. I think we're aware of this happening, but this just shows the numbers where the PC penetration per capita has really leveled off significantly, and the sorry, my screen sharing keeps getting interrupted. And the smartphone sales have exploded, and you can see tablet sales appearing on the scene in 2011 and very quickly reaching 6% at the end of last year, and that number is going to be the proverbial hockey stick going near vertical in 2014. At the same time, mobile devices represent a very rich target for hackers, criminals, etc., state actors as well. You have unprecedented access on a mobile device to sensitive data, mixing both business information and personal information. With the explosion of BYOD, bring your own device in business space, a lot of people using their own iPhones, their own Android phones for work. You now have your shopping, you have potentially your personal banking, but also your enterprise email, probably files that you access, all of these things on one device, actually an even richer target than the traditional corporate laptop in many ways. It's also a lot easier to steal. And then at the same time, due to the structure of devices and the consumer nature, enterprises really have limited visibility into what's happening on them. And as you use an app, so if as a consumer you download an app and you use it, you can't really see if it's using SSL to secure your data connection to the server. If it's not using SSL and you use it on Wi-Fi anywhere, that means anyone executing, sniffing, or monitoring that Wi-Fi hotspot can read your data. You can't really see what URLs it's connecting to. We've done research that shows apps very unexpectedly connect to other countries and send data to places that people aren't expecting. And then finally, doesn't access sensitive data. You, on Android, you get this big list of permissions, and you say, well, do I want to install it? Do I not want to install it? You generally have to grant a lot of permissions for most apps. It has access to your location. It has access to your contacts, to your phone calls. Is it uploading that data to a server? Typically, you don't have visibility to that. The next slide, the anatomy of a mobile attack, is our illustration of just how broad the attack surface is when we're talking about mobile. You have things ranging from the device across the network in the data center. And on the left side here you can see in the device itself a number of surfaces. The browser, as used mobile websites, could be a vector of attack. The system itself can have vulnerabilities that facilitate malware, other types of attacks. You have the phone aspect itself. You have the area we're going to talk the most about is apps as a very rich target. And then you have the network, sniffing, attacks that leverage DNS or other types of spoofing on the network. And finally, you have the data center. So all the attacks that we had with websites are also possible with mobile. Generally, you can still have SQL injection. You can still have an insecure server. You can still brute force passwords. You can still have poor input validation. Mobile didn't really get rid of those issues. It just changed the way that we develop on the client side. So there's some broad areas of risk as companies expand into mobile and develop apps. You have compliance and regulatory. Are you following the requirements of your industry, the laws and other requirements in terms of data protection? And security is a major concern. Is your own network protected? Is the security of your end users or those who use your app, is that security protected? And finally, legal and e-discovery. What data is on devices? Is it pertinent? Is it responsive to cases? Could it become a problem in a legal situation if your app is doing something or is not doing something that it should or should not be doing? Those regulatory concerns can be quite substantial. PCI is an area many are familiar with. It's industry regulation related to storage and transmission of credit card numbers and data related to credit cards, payment card information. HIPAA is another well-known regulation, or at least well-known by name, and it relates to health information, how entities like hospitals, clinics, health insurers, how they can store that, who can access it. And really we're seeing a rush into mobile devices in the healthcare space, which is great for accessibility of data, but HIPAA is largely about protecting that data, and we're not necessarily seeing the accountability and security practices in mobile that need to go along with that rush to providing access. GLBA is the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, and the FFIEC also has regulations that apply to financial institutions and their handling of private information. And finally, the FERC has regulations for our energy infrastructure providers. There are more. This is not an exhaustive list, but just an example of different areas that can affect what goes on mobile devices and how apps developed for those mobile devices have to be constructed. So when we talk about mobile security, who's responsible? Ultimately, is it iOS? Is it Apple? Is it Android? Is it the carrier? Who's responsible? So this diagram is sort of a tongue-in-cheek illustration of how unclear mobile security is in its current state. They say just follow the lines. Well, you have the OS developer who's not necessarily responsible for the device in the Android space. You have the device manufacturers who customize the OS in the Android space. Even in the iPhone space, you have the wireless carriers who are not the same as the iPhone provider. And then we have the app developers, corporations, and end users. All have a role to play, but aren't necessarily in control as much as they'd like, or have the visibility that they want to control the security. A good example of this is Android updates. We've all heard the term fragmentation in Android. So Google creates Android, creates a new version in the Android open source project, and then releases that to the handset makers, the OEMs, and they have to provide their own customization to it, to a new version before they can push it out to end users. It can take a year or more for a new version of Android to reach the end user. When there's a security vulnerability involved, a year is really a massively unrealistic timeline to get an update. I'm just going to exit one application here that I need to keeps interfering with my presentation. My apologies. So the Android fragmentation and delay in updates is just one example of how the mobile security responsibility and delivery is still problematic. Here's another sort of tongue-in-cheek list of the many examples of substantial security problems we've had on mobile since, really just since the launch of the iPhone and the explosion of consumer mobile devices. These range from sort of minor and facepalm, how did they miss that, to really deep issues that undermine the security of all transmissions from the device or all the data on the device. Some of these are very recent. You have the go-to-fail issue where Apple broke SSL for both their Mac OS X and their iOS. And Exynos listed next to it was a Samsung vulnerability that undermined the security of most of their devices. And a lot of these get big headlines, and they can be very damaging for the company. And these are just a few examples of those types of vulnerabilities. And the reason these mobile platform vulnerabilities, these mobile OS failures mean something for apps is that apps cannot strictly rely on the security of the operating system. Yes, you have to use the APIs and you have to live within the OS that you deploy to, but it's simply unrealistic and really unsafe for an entity to say, hey, we're developing an app for the iPhone, therefore it will be secure. The iPhone has encryption, therefore our app will be fine. That's completely not the case. We tested 100 apps in 2013, 50 iOS, 50 Android, and we found 20% failing on man-in-the-middle or not using SSL at all. We still found 65% storing sensitive data in memory, and up to 75% on iOS having at least one high-risk issue. So we see things from passwords stored where they shouldn't be to sensitive data stored on the SD card on Android, which is a really insecure practice. In our corporate work, where we're testing for financial institutions and other higher security customers, we have seen things including hard-coded passwords to back-end servers, credit cards transmitted in clear text, or simply transmitted unnecessarily with some level of encryption, but really not being handled securely. We've seen session issues and really a number of different problems that can undermine the security of the application or the server. That's why these different problems that we've seen are why we were so excited to work with CompTIA on the Mobile App Security Plus certification. This certification, it covers just app development. There's two different certifications, one for iOS and one for Android. But it's really just focused on apps and what a developer has to do in terms of process, in terms of understanding the risks with mobile, in terms of using the platform securely and implementing their own security properly in the app. We leverage all our expertise from developing apps and from securing apps and assessing them, and we believe this certification really covers the fundamental security awareness and skills that these developers have to avoid these problems and participate in the secure development process. We see some really clear benefits for the developers themselves. If an app developer is looking to improve in security, they can use the objectives and training offered to understand what they should be learning, what they should be studying to pursue the certification. And then once they are ready, some app developers have the skills already, others need to study. But once they are ready, they can distinguish their skills and separate themselves from many app developers who simply don't have this knowledge and these skills in secure development. For companies, it really demonstrates that they take security seriously if they're requiring their developers to achieve this certification. It helps them identify developers. So there's a lot of talent out there offering mobile development services, and we believe that talent varies widely in terms of security knowledge and capabilities. And finally, the biggest benefit is avoiding the problems that can come from an insecure app. You can have enormous brand damage or negative market attention, and even worse, a company could face fines or regulatory issues if their app had really substantial security issues. So just to briefly share the high-level objectives of the exams, the areas of knowledge that are covered. You have the threat models and the secure development lifecycle principles. It dives into the actual Android SDK, how you interact with the Android operating system, and what are those security features that Android as an OS offers. The device operating system is one layer. Number 3 is the next layer, the network layer, communicating with web services and using the network securely. Data security, a lot of developers try to use encryption. It's not necessarily done properly in many cases. So understanding how and when to store data and also how to do it securely with proper encryption implementation. We talk about app hardening, which means taking extra steps to avoid hacking, to avoid problems. And we talk about an understanding of reverse engineering. So developers should understand, what can happen to their app when it goes out into the App Store and it gets downloaded. What are hackers or security researchers, what are they able to do using reverse engineering tools and hacking tools? It's an important understanding for developers to have if they're going to securely develop these mobile apps. And finally, Java coding, which is the primary language for Android apps, is another objective. On the iOS side, they're very similar. You replace Java with Objective-C. You have the iOS SDK and APIs, and other than that, you have the same topics in terms of network security, web security, encryption, and data security, and app hardening. But they are distinct exams because iOS is not the same, the security protocols aren't the same, the SDK is different, and so we really believe that if there are developers who work on both platforms, but it's not a single exam, it's not a single domain of knowledge. So ultimately, why we believe developers and companies should consider Mobile App Security Plus. Probably, we're not sure about this, but we're pretty sure that mobile's not going away. It seems to be taking off. Secure apps are better than insecure apps, to put it very simply. And so secure app development is highly in demand. That's something we've observed in the marketplace. And it's difficult to prove you're doing app development securely, but as a developer, this certification and as a company, these certifications are one way to really show that commitment and demonstrate those skills in a neutral and credible way. And that's my info. Our company is pretty easy to follow and keep in touch with. And that concludes my formal slide deck. So I think we're going to turn it back over to Anthony for Q&A and wrap up.
Thanks, Ted. So don't have any questions in the queue right now, but if you guys want to go ahead and type them in there, I can relay them to Alina and Ted, and they can answer for you. So I have a question here that says, Is the Mobile App Security Plus exam available in India?
Sorry, that cut out for me, Anthony. The question, is it available now?
In India. In India?
I believe it's available globally through CompTIA. Maybe Garrett can speak to that if he's on the line. I believe it's provided through Pearson VUE primarily and is available globally in English.
It is available globally if you can hear me, and the exam would be in English at this time. We haven't done any localization for mobile app security yet, but it should be available globally in English, correct.
Thanks, Garrett.
And this is Ted, just to clarify, although we worked with CompTIA to develop the exams, they are fully created and administered by CompTIA. So the place to go for registration, information on the Mobile App Security Plus is the CompTIA website.
All right, so I'm not getting any other questions yet, but we will hang around for another 5 or so minutes if there are any of the others that are trickling in. Otherwise, I want to thank you for coming out today. I want to thank Ted and Elena and Garrett from VIA Forensics, Mobile Comply, and CompTIA. And on behalf of New Horizons, I want to thank everyone for coming out. Again, like I said, we'll be hanging out for a little bit longer for any questions that you might have. But otherwise, have a great day, everyone, and thank you again.